Hi, I'm Bob Dodge with Artemis Gallery. When I started Artemis about 23 years ago, I was a collector like most of you. And one of the things that occurred to me is that we use all of our senses in determining whether the ancient art that we're looking at, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, and different facets of it. So in this segment, we're going to be using our sense of hearing and our sense of touch. In previous segments, we've used sense of smell and our sight, but this time we're going to use our ears and our fingertips to try and determine, is something ancient, is it modern, or are there other things going on with it that we need to know? So one of the first things we're going to do, we're going to do the sense of hearing, and one of the things that most people probably don't recognize or don't realize when they think about ancient art, the technology involved in firing pottery 2,000 years ago or 1,000 years ago is far different than the technology that is available and used by most of the fakers today. So one of the things that we look for in using our sense of hearing is the piece high fired or is it low fired? So low fired means it was fired in a kiln where the temperature was under probably 1,200 to 1,000 degrees. And you can tell that by listening to the ting, the pitch of the pottery when you thump it. So a low-fired piece of pottery has a much lower pitch than a high-fired piece of pottery. So this piece of pottery, which is about 1,000 years old, has a little bit of a ting, so it was in probably a low to medium heat range kiln. So you can take a look at something like Greek pottery. So this is a reproduction. We talked about it in the last segment and looked at all the things that kind of identified it as being a reproduction. But if you listen to it when you ting it, if you can hear that, that is a very high pitch. So that's an indication that this piece of pottery was fired in a very hot kiln. So a similar period, but authentic piece of Greek pottery, that pitch is down, I don't know how many octaves, I'm not a music major, but you can hear that this is much lower fired than this example. So we use our sense of hearing. You can also use sense of hearing in other mediums instead of just pottery. I know that there are folks who swear they can hear the difference between ancient bronze and modern bronze. And in my experience, I get almost a glass tinkle sound when I thump ancient bronzes. But, you know, that's something to experiment, see if your hearing can pick up on that. So the next sense that we're going to be talking about is sense of feel. So what we're looking for when we're feeling something. If something's been in the ground, one of the things that I have noticed, so this is a piece of authentic ancient pottery from the Panama, Costa Rica, Key region. And see these ridges, they're very finely done. And this piece of pottery has sat in the ground for about 1,000 years. And over that time, there's been movement in the earth. And so all these ridges are soft and don't have the sharp, pointed texture of something that just came out of a kiln. So it's like 1,000 years of a very fine sandpaper has gone over the surface of this. And you want to feel that, and you want to feel that softness. Another example, Casas Grandes pottery. Most of you who collect Casas Grandes probably realize this, but Casas Grandes is always fired and slipped on the inside just the way it is on the outside. So if you ever put your hand inside of a Casas Grandes jar and it feels like coarse sandpaper, you got something that's made in the 1900s. If you put your hand on the inside and it feels smooth, just like the outside does, then you have no reason to believe that it's a reproduction. So that's just one of the many things we use. So that's how we use our senses. We use our sight, our hearing, our smell, touch. There are those that will lick pottery. I don't know what they're tasting, but evidently there's a saltiness that comes with being in the ground. I don't do that. But I do use my other four senses. This is Bob Dodge with Artemis Gallery. Thanks so much.